Support for the program Humanize, Newcomers was provided in part by Rose Community Foundation and viewers like you.
Hi, my name is Luigi Del Puerto. I'm the editor of Colorado Politics and the Denver Gazette. I'm also a first-generation immigrant. I started out as a reporter, became editor, became top editor and then publisher of the Arizona Capital Times, which is like Colorado Politics in Arizona. I was born in southern Philippines in this coastal village, which is a very poor part of southern Philippines. And when I say poor, I mean very close to abject poverty. That's my childhood. So I went to journalism, wanted to change the world like every idealistic young man, young woman, something like that. And I married my wife Pearl, who is a nurse. Nurses from the Philippines typically end up in the United States. That's just the way it goes. So we knew at some point that we were going to apply for a visa and we were going to go through that process, and at some point we were going to get here to the United States. It was just a matter of time. I wanted to write about corruption in the political system and really hone in my skills as a journalist that way. And I was, toward the end of my career over there, I was one of the national security reporters. So I covered coup attempts. There are two ongoing wars in the Philippines, one a secessionist movement in the south, and another one is a communist rebellion, which is throughout the archipelago. And of course, corruption is endemic in that country. And so I really enjoyed doing that. But you know, at the end of the day, I couldn't allow my wife to go to the United States and not be with her. And that's how I ended up here. And we spent most of our time actually in Arizona, which meant I wrote about immigration a whole lot. A few years ago, the company here in Denver said, hey, do you want to move to Denver? So this opportunity came up and we said, okay, let's go. The saga, this intractable problem of fixing the border and a quote-unquote comprehensive solution to illegal immigration had been around for longer than 20 years. I think the last time we actually did something comprehensive about it. And I call it an intractable problem because everybody's trying to do something about it, and they're all failing. The most recent one, a comprehensive sort of bipartisan proposal to quote-unquote fix this problem. And in the last 16, 17 months, we've seen that intractable problem from the southern border spill over now into the interior cities of the United States. And whereas before, people in Denver, in New York, in Chicago, then kind of look at the border and say, sure, that's your problem. Or maybe they're not saying that's your problem, but they don't really have to deal with this problem. And now we've had to deal with this problem. We're now directly feeling the fiscal strain among many strains. I sort of find myself always on the outside looking in, even though I'm very close to the subject. And part of that is, as I noted before, I'm an immigrant. The history of humankind is history of migration. People have moved from one place to the next. We've settled on islands, we've crossed land bridges, and we've populated continents. And that migration has often produced peaceful coexistence in some instances, integration, cooperation, maybe some uneasy alliances, but Also, it's produced conflict and war. But that's the history of the world, and that's the history of mankind. And I always view immigration or migration as a positive good. Now, if you look at the last, hundreds of years of human history, which is, by the way, a very small sliver of our history as human beings, we're now in this nation-state building phase. And now we have this country called the United States that's sort of going against that grain. I mean, think of it that way. If you look at any other country in the world, it's based on race, ethnicity, tribal affiliation, common language, shared history. But the United States as a country is saying, well, maybe we transcend those. Maybe we're based on this ideal, right, of the individual as bestowed with this divine spark, if you will. And that means we have inalienable rights, and we as individuals need to be free. And so now in this country, what we're really seeing is this very ancient impulses that we have to affiliate with our tribe versus this kind of shared ideal, this idea of the United States. And often they clash. But it's also challenged, this country that we have is also challenged us to say, look, yes, people are migrating, we welcome them. But we don't have that shared history that other countries have. I think what we need to do as a country really is to find ways so that we can emphasize and celebrate the things that unite us more, vis-a-vis the things that differentiate us. I think it's really important for us to do that. I truly see this country as a land of opportunity because it has allowed immigrants like me. I can identify as a Filipino American. My child can identify as a Filipino American, for example. But I would rather that I identify myself as just American per se. And I want my child to grow up in a country where he's not thinking about race, he's not thinking about ethnicity, he's not thinking about tribal affiliation. He's thinking about the things that we share together and how we can celebrate those and how we can promote those. And I think it's incumbent on our political leaders, but not just political leaders, but also ordinary citizens and residents to think of the United States that way. I often tell my boy, you think of the future as this blank slate. Well, I don't look at the future as a blank slate. I look at the rear view mirror and see where we've been. And that's how I think we can navigate the future, by looking at what we've done, what we've succeeded to do, what we're trying to accomplish still. As a journalist, my job is to figure out what's happening in society and to figure out what's happening with this problem of migration, immigration, and to present it to our readers in the most straightforward and analytical way that we can. We want to ask the really difficult questions about what's happening, and we don't want to shy away from exploring those. I think that to view this as a red or blue issue is exactly the wrong prescription for this country. It is incredibly complex at some level, and yet quite simple at another level. My job is to figure out what people are saying, what people are doing, and what they're attempting to accomplish, and then write about it. I can tell you from my experience, from where I came from, that tribalism is probably one of the worst things that can happen. The logical end of tribalism is war and conflict. And I certainly don't want that for the United States, and I don't want that for my boy.
My name is Violeta Chapin. I'm an Associate Dean and Clinical Professor of Law at the University of Colorado Law School in Boulder. I also direct the Immigration Clinic, where students work on immigration-related cases under my supervision. I was very randomly born in Costa Rica, and I say that because neither one of my parents is from Costa Rica. They just happened to be living there when I was born. My father is a US citizen. My mom is originally from El Salvador. And at the time, the immigration laws were such that if you had a parent who was a US citizen and you were born outside of the United States, you were automatically a US citizen. So my dad took me to the U.S. Embassy, and I've always been a U.S. citizen. And so I was interested in seeing how it is that I could be a lawyer to help people who had sort of less access to justice in whatever way that looked like. And so I graduated from law school. I joined the Public Defender Service for the District of Columbia and became a public defender, working in DC, helping people charged with crimes at all levels, sort of starting with misdemeanors and graduating up to felonies. And I've loved being a lawyer and standing up in court for folks who have sometimes, are unable to speak their voice. And I think it's been a really interesting journey for me to then move into the immigration space. When I was at the Public Defender, I was one of the few lawyers who spoke Spanish, so I was getting more and more clients who were monolingual Spanish speakers, and sometimes they weren't citizens of the United States, so I had to learn about immigration consequences of criminal convictions. And then I joined the faculty at CU Boulder in 2009 to teach the Criminal Defense Clinic. We have clients who are lawful permanent residents, we have clients who are here on a visa, we have clients who are completely undocumented, and we help them navigate a variety of legal proceedings. The federal government has long been in charge of immigration. There has to be a sort of formal process for both admitting immigrants and potentially expelling them. Our Immigration and Nationality Act was created in 1965. It has been something, this question of immigration has been something which has been one of the most litigated, talked about, right, sometimes very divisive topics in our society. The last time that we had any real substantive reform to our immigration laws was in 1986, when President Reagan signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act. It needs to be Congress who changes the laws, and we've had a tremendous amount of difficulty as a country agreeing about how to reform the laws. The reason why we have 11 million undocumented people living in the United States is because we have very few lawful ways for people to be able to adjust their status. We have about 800,000, almost 1 million dreamers. People refer to them as dreamers. They are DACA recipients, and so many people have heard of DACA recipients. They're young people who were born here in born in another country, but were brought to the United States or arrived in the United States when they were very small, and they've essentially grown up here in the United States. We've got undocumented students enrolled in colleges and universities across the country. We've had 3 undocumented students come through the law school. They're these extraordinary young people who we also have been unable as a country to normalize their immigration status. The DREAM Act has always been a bipartisan piece of legislation. It's been introduced in Congress now at least 19 times, and it has failed 19 times. And so our inability to normalize the status of just the dreamers, who, according to polls, enjoy an extraordinary amount of bipartisan support, is an example of this country's and this immigration system's inability to address what seems like fairly common sense problems. President Obama said it years ago, and I agree with him, which is that every single undocumented student who graduates from college should get a green card the day they graduate. That just makes sense. This sort of question of immigration to the United States affects all of us. It is definitely something that we have been unable to resolve for a lot of time. And are there ways to put pressure on the system to force people to think about it more? And I think the arrival of so many thousands of migrants in Denver have forced a lot of us in Colorado to really experience what it's like and what it looks like on a very visceral level to have an immigration system that is not properly set up to sort of allow people entry in a dignified and efficient and organized way, right? That's why we have this chaos. And so in a way, I have to say that I'm grateful for that, that migrants were bused to other cities so that we could really begin to talk about this in a way that maybe we hadn't before. If anyone hasn't already, they should go and volunteer at the migrant clinics that are happening in Denver all day long. My students and I have gone this semester a few times to the migrant clinics in Denver, and one thing that has struck me every single time is the extraordinary volunteers that have all showed up. They're all different ages, they're from all over Colorado or different places in Denver, and they're showing up together unpaid on a Tuesday or on a Sunday, right, to help strangers, people that they don't know, access a process that will have real tangible benefits for them. Denver has set up, with the collaboration and quite frankly, resources from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is a federal immigration agency, to sign up newly arriving migrants for either a work permit or for what's called temporary protected status. And it's extraordinary, right, that USCIS has done this. I've never seen USCIS do this in the way that they have. And it's been an extraordinary response from our community, our local folks, to come and see in sort of real time what it looks like. There are people who absolutely desperately need help and refuge. And I think in speaking to folks directly about their motivations, you learn, wow, you're not here to just take advantage of America, which I think is what a lot of people unfortunately think. And they would honestly rather be in Venezuela if Venezuela wasn't in complete and total economic freefall, right? And if it wasn't impossible for them to live there. And most Americans have never experienced that. Colorado has been extraordinarily focused, I think, on having sort of equitable systems that are available to people who live here, regardless of who they are, right? We need to find lawmakers who can come in the middle to figure out ways to normalize, right, the sort of living situation of people who have been here a very long time. We were helping all of these sort of newly arrived migrants apply for work permits. It was jarring because we have so many clients in our clinic that have lived here for decades, right? They have US citizen children, they've paid taxes here forever, and they have never had the opportunity to even apply for a work permit. And that is just nonsensical to me. And I'm glad we're giving the Venezuelan migrants the work permits. They need them, for sure. But what about all of our 11 million undocumented, essentially neighbors that have lived here for so long? They certainly should have at least basic access to that. And I think this is a good time to be talking about it because a lot of states are experiencing labor shortages and they need employees, and everybody would prefer for everyone to be lawful. I am trying to remain hopeful. It will really matter who wins the presidential election. And that's something that all of us, I think, are thinking about who advocate for and care about immigrants. So to the extent that we have a president in charge who believes in the importance of immigrants to this country, to the history of immigrants in this country, I am hopeful that we can come up, I think, collectively with common sense solutions.
My name is Julie Ector. I'm the Vice President of Ector's Garden Center in Arvada. I'm on the board for an organization called CNGA. It's Colorado Nursery and Greenhouse Association. Our job at CNGA is to kind of advocate for our businesses and help them progress and move forward. I think ever since COVID, we've kind of been in this labor shortage where we can't find people to do the jobs that we need. We're a very seasonal business. We go from about 35 year-round employees to over 100 in the spring. So we have to bring on a lot of people really quickly and train them. But we're small businesses and we obviously can't offer the perks that a lot of big corporations can. I live in Edgewater. I'm kind of close to one of the hotels that they turned into a shelter. So I was kind of watching this migrant crisis play out on my streets, and it was really getting to me. Every corner there was a person holding up a sign saying, "I need work," and I was like, just seems like such an obvious connection between all of these people in our industry. And I was like, this seems like it could be the answer to our labor issues. So I kind of started doing research, and I wanted to sponsor people to get their work permits and then bring them in to work for us. Luckily, Denver started doing all of these legal clinics where they actually help them do the paperwork and get the fee waiver for them. But yeah, we've brought in 4 people from Venezuela. They have been our best employees probably all year. They're just very dependable, very hardworking, and we love them. So I really wanted to help kind of create a bridge between the migrant population and other businesses in the green industry as well. There's kind of this big Facebook group. It's like Highlands Moms and Neighbors. So that's kind of where I started learning about all of this. I joined that group and there was just so much information on there. But I kind of reached out to that group and said, hey, I want to do this project and try to connect migrants with jobs in the green industry. So I had a lot of people reach out saying that they were working with migrant families. Jose and Nikki, their husband and wife, they have a 10-year-old boy. They came from Venezuela. They really love plants, they're amazing, they'd be a great fit, and they live in Arvada. So they came in, interviewed with us, they were awesome, so excited. But yeah, they've been working for us for the last 2 months now, and they're just amazing. I guess right when we hired Nikki and Jose, I had Channel 7 reach out and they wanted to do an interview about Hector's hiring migrant workers. I was really excited because I had started this project. We're calling it the New Roots Project, but basically it's a platform to connect migrants and other businesses that are hiring. It aired right after they aired the story about Denver cutting budgets to help with the migrant crisis. So after that, we just got so much blowback. I was getting emails, we were getting like really awful Google reviews, just people saying like, we're never gonna shop with you again. We don't support this, you're taking away jobs from Americans. I tried to explain to everybody, I was like, we're not hiring these people over other people just because they're migrants. I was like, we interviewed them just the same as we interview anybody else. So that was kind of tough. But then NPR or CPR came out and did another story, and they kind of talked about all of the blowback that we had gotten. So when that story aired, we actually got like a flood of support after that. It's tough because it's like such a polarized topic, I think. It seems like a win-win for these people to get work permits and to start working so that our city isn't having to pay to take care of them. And like, that's all they want is to work and be able to support themselves. It's hard trying to explain that to to masses that are just reading like a headline. But after the CPR story, and then it actually went to NPR, we got a lot of really good feedback after that, and a lot of people that have been coming in and saying, we're shopping with you solely because you guys are standing up for this issue that we believe in. It was a journey. I guess the process that these people have to go through, I think there's a misconception that like people are sneaking in. They're not sneaking in. Our government let them cross the border. Like, there was the group that was given TPS status, but like the majority of people here don't fall into the TPS category. Then you have the people that came over on like the CBP One app, which was like a great thing for our government to put together to make like a legal pathway for them. But they had to make an appointment at the border. So to say you have to like be at the border at this day, at this time, and these people literally walked there, like it's just kind of crazy. And those are the only two groups that are eligible to get a work permit right away. Everybody else has to apply for asylum and wait 150 days before they can apply for a work permit. The asylum process is just so complicated and confusing. It's all in English, nothing is given to them in Spanish. It costs anywhere between like $6,000 to $12,000 to go through an asylum case. So to tell these people, yeah, you have to start this process before you can work. They came here with nothing, so like you have to go find a lawyer to help you with this asylum process. It's unreasonable. There should be a fast process for these people to be able to get work permits. People coming from South America are not treated the same as refugees or immigrants from other countries. So like if somebody's coming from Ukraine, they show up, they can get a work permit immediately. There's like all this financial assistance for them. But anyone coming from South America, they show up and they're treated like they're a criminal. The Facebook groups, I think there's ones for like each different kind of part of Colorado or like different parts of the city in Denver. I think it's a great way to like get involved and kind of understand what's going on. There's a lot that are making LLCs to try to get around the work permit issues. There's a lot that are like doing like house cleaning and like yard work and car detailing, and I think if you're getting that stuff done, if you can kind of like try to utilize those populations that really like need the extra help. They also do a great job, and usually for like a very reasonable price. I think everybody just needs to be more empathetic to the situation. We're all so privileged that we were born into the lives that we were, and we don't have to go through walking across 9 countries to try to find a better life and risking your kids' lives and your own life, just putting it all on the line to like try to find a place where you can make a real living. We are really privileged, and a lot of people come from places that life is a lot harder, and we should have some empathy for them.
We hope Humanize stories of immigrants moved and inspired you. Turn that feeling into support for PBS 12. Your donation helps us share more stories celebrating Colorado's diverse community. Learn more at pbs12.org/donate.